Thanks very much to the virtual audience for your interest. Without enough introduction, I'll do my own. I'm Jeremy McManus. I'm the GM Commercial and Investor Relations for Neometals. What I'm hoping to do in a very limited time is give you a high-level overview of what we're up to, but specifically I want to look at our role in decarbonising critical raw materials, and that supply chain in the EU. So, my thought here is that you can't do away with minerals to make stuff, but what you can do is you can source and generate those minerals in a smarter and a much more sustainable way. And that's something we're really focused on. Disclaimer. So at a high level, Neometals is a project development business. We're based, headquartered in Perth, Western Australia. We're Australian Stock Exchange listed. We're focused on minerals and materials, that relate to this energy transition. We've got 4 core projects. They're diversified. They sit in different spots in the value chain. But the commonality between those 4 projects is that they all intersect the EV and the energy storage supply chains at some point. So Neometals came from mining roots, if you like, and we've been actively pivoting away from traditional hard rock mining to eco-friendly materials recovery. And to that end, I'm going to talk to you today specifically about our EU projects, which support the circular economies and domestic supply chain resilience. So Neometals has had some good success. We're building a track record for project execution. We bolstered our balance sheet very strongly through our efforts at the Mount Marion lithium mine. We invested $3 million. We made $2 million from that project by progressively selling down equity in what became the second largest, production asset for lithium units globally, and it still is today. With that money, what we're doing is we've got a strong balance sheet to fund our 4 core projects. We don't have any debt, and unusually for a company our size, we've paid quite a few dividends. So of the core projects, the top 2 I'm going to focus on today. I'm going to speak predominantly about lithium-ion battery recycling, to a lesser extent about vanadium recovery, but that's all about materials recovery and recycling and the sustainability impact that they have. The other projects which you're very welcome to ring and contact us about, we've got a lithium refinery project that really relates to our desire to build lithium chemical production with a partner in India for the residual offtake that we got when we sold our Mount Marion lithium project. The Barrambie titanium and vanadium project, again, that's with a big partner in China called IMUMR. We've spent about $30 million on this project. It's located in WA. We own it 100%. And that is very mature. It has its mining permits, environmental permits in place. And so really where we need to go from here is to secure an offtake to get a lot more progress. And then finally, the Mount Edwards nickel project has been attracting a lot of attention. That's 11 deposits for 150,000 contained nickel sulfide tons in resource. Near Kambalda, we're about 50 kilometres away from BHP's concentrator there. So, that's also another good string to our bow. So let's talk about lithium battery recycling. I think before I get into explaining, the solution that we have, it's worthwhile looking in the top row here at the need. In short, these batteries are very hazardous. You can't put them in landfill. They also have a habit of catching on fire if you transport or you store them. They're also very valuable. They shouldn't go to waste. The contents are worth a lot of money. It's an eclectic mix of minerals. But moreover, there's a value in raw material supply that can't be forgotten. And also, they have a very big CO2 footprint in their manufacture. So the needs to recycle really then supports, the opportunity, which is the bottom row here. There's extraordinary market tailwinds, particularly in Europe you know, the sort of things you need to focus on there are, you know, the Paris Agreement, global climate concerns, the phase out of combustion engines, you know, industry investments. Volkswagen's a good example in recent times. And globally, I think post-COVID, a lot of people are thinking very closely about domestic supply chain resilience. But the end result of the uptake of, you know, these new lithium batteries and electric vehicles will be mountains of spent material, which is an opportunity for us. So we've got fantastic exposure to this new mega trend through our battery recycling project. You know, we are recovering 6 of the minerals you're seeing in this chart here. We get lithium from the electrolyte, cobalt and nickel from the cathode, vanadium from the cathode in next-gen lithium-ion technologies, and copper from the current collectors. So from one source, it's an extraordinary you know, collection of minerals that we can recover. You know, what is not well known necessarily is that electric cars start off their life being not all that green at all. During the production phase of the batteries, the vehicles have a very big CO2 footprint. If you look at this graph here, you can see it's roughly double that of the vehicle below it, which is a combustion engine vehicle. And that is because of the mining and the transportation and the, you know, transition to turning these minerals into materials and chemicals has a very heavy CO2 footprint. Of course, the electric car catches up with no emissions from the tailpipe, but it takes 6 or 7 years. So car makers are very aware of this. What they're very motivated to do is bring that break-even point further backwards to the left. And one of the key ways to do that is by recycling the batteries. So, you know, I mentioned sustainability with recycling. If you want to make new batteries, there's 3 ways to do it. In blue here, you can extract minerals from virgin deposits through mining. The footprint per tonne of new batteries made is about 8 tonnes of CO2 equivalent. If you use incumbent recycling technology to get those materials out of old batteries, you're at about 4 tonnes. So this is not a particularly green method, it's a sunset industry. What we and some other clever people are doing is working on a hydrometallurgical recycling method, and there the CO2 footprint is much, much smaller, in the 300 to 400 kilograms per tonne of new batteries. So, you know, I mentioned tailwinds before. There's new regulations in the EU which are really supporting efforts. Prior to this time, you know, there was a collection target of about 45% of lithium-ion batteries once they've had it. The collection target's now 100%. You're going to need in Europe to have recycled content in your new batteries. You have to declare your CO2 footprint, and provenance is very important. There's a battery passport where you've got to make clear exactly where your material has come from. So we anticipate that recycled materials for cathode makers are actually going to be sought after. Heaven forbid, you might even get a premium at some point. You know, and all roads lead to this statement that recycling is not optional. There's a range of reasons for it, whether they be economic, to do with sustainability or pollution. It is just not negotiable. So if I look now more closely at what actually are we doing, you know, what we have is analogous to a base metal refinery, essentially, but rather than getting your source material from rocks out of the ground, you're getting it from spent batteries through a hydromet rather than a pyromet pathway. And what's really unique about the feed source is that it offers a basket of minerals with extraordinarily high grades. If you look at, if the image on the left, but moving swiftly along, what we're doing is unique. 1, because of the technology, 2, because of the business model itself. But this image shows the technology. It's a 2-stage process. Up the top here in stage 1, we have our spoke facility where we shred incoming spent batteries. Doesn't matter the format, prismatic, pouch, cylindrical. We smash them up and we essentially make them safe to transport. From that process, we take out the plastics, the steel casings, the metal foils, and the electrolyte. And what we have is a black mass, which can, if needs be transported to a centralized hub where we do the refining. So this is the chemistry set. The high value products and high purity products come out here for the cathode makers to purchase. You've got your nickel, your cobalt, your manganese, your lithium, and also your carbon. We're particularly enthusiastic about the project on a number of fronts, but from an economic perspective, we take the view it's going to be challenging for us to lose money. And people often say, yes, but you're not going to be able to source just from consumer electronics. And that's correct. So on the far left here where my cursor is, you can see the in situ value of the constituent materials in say a phone battery, an LCO battery, and it's about $15,000 a tonne. So fantastic if we could just source those batteries, but the reality is the big volumes are coming from vehicles. Vehicles are moving to more nickel rich and less cobalt. NMC 811 is the chemistry we're going to see in future. However, the value of the constituents here is about $5,500 a tonne. Our scoping study tells us the OPEX at about $1,600 a tonne leaves a very healthy margin. So we go into this with our eyes open. We believe we can make money irrespective of the chemistry. So how do we do that? We've entered into a JV with the SMS Group out of Germany. They're a very big company, 14,000 staff across the globe. Their remit is to build complex metallurgical plants day in, day out. And that's what they will do for us in our joint venture company called Promobius. They are essentially industrializing our very successful R&D effort. We're building a demo plant right now in the middle of Germany with SMS. You can see some images here, which will become real pictures in the very near future for the fact that that's being constructed as we speak. And that facility is important because we'll prove the technology at scale. We will evaluate battery samples given to us by both automotive companies and stationary storage companies, and we'll give them back the chemicals for them to evaluate. In terms of commercial progress, we've got 2 MOUs at least in the public domain. One is with Innobat, a Slovakian cell maker of the future. They've got some very big partners here. Initially, we will take their scrap from production in their pilot line and then from their commercial facility, which is scaling up to 10 gigawatt hours by 2024. The other MOU is with Itochu Corporation of Japan, a very big and well-known company. Apart from being a trading house, they also have a stationary energy storage business called SmartStar, and we're working together for a solve for recycling their end-of-life batteries. So the timeline is, here we are building our demo plant. We'll complete those trials in July of this year. We'll do our feasibility study and we'll make an investment decision on our first commercial plant March quarter of next year. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm only going to talk to one slide on recycling and recovery. So this project is topical. It's the recovery of finite materials, just like the recycling. It's also based in Europe. The opportunity came about because together with our partner Critical Metals, we established that Swedish magnetite has very high vanadium content. The national steel maker, SSAB, uses a furnace which requires limestone, and the waste material called slag, which is then stockpiled, has got a lot of vanadium attached to the calcium. So it runs about 4% vanadium, which is about 3 or 4 times better than what you'd find in the ground. So, that's very attractive to us. We own about 16% of Critical. Critical has secured a 10-year supply agreement for that slag material from SSAB. In order to earn in, it's an option for us to earn in 50% of a future JV with Critical. We will fund the development spend over the next couple of years. And then together we'll look to extract vanadium chemicals from that slag in Finland in a place called Pori, and sell that to battery manufacturers of the future with their vanadium chemistry. So what you're looking at here is an image of one of the sites where the slag's stockpiled. It's called Luleå. Over the page, Rahe in Finland and Oxelösund in Sweden are other locations, and here's Pori where we'll process the material. I'm going to skip ahead because you're welcome to ask us questions, during this conference or post the fact. couple of images here, but I'm going to leave you with our finishing slide and encourage you to give us a call. So I'll leave you on this slide, company highlights. In essence, you've got a very well-funded company. We are in a position with our partners to fund ourselves through to investment decisions on our 4 big projects. Our flagship projects over in Europe have a very green ESG bent towards them, and we have a lot of shots on goal and a lot of catalysts in the near future. So I appreciate your interest.